Hi, my name is Jackie, and this is my sport-specific program design for the case study that we were given. I was given a girl named Tina who's trying out for the Duke's women's lacrosse team. So in this presentation, I'm going to go over a few different points. I'm going to go over sport-specific task analysis, so what are requirements of an athlete who's going to be playing the sport of field lacrosse, and kind of what the expectations are, what the injury risks are, things like that. I'm going to go over Tina's specific individual analysis, so I'm going to go over her strengths, her weaknesses, and her training priorities for the program that I've designed for her to help her get to that Duke's lacrosse team. And then we're going to go over the program I built for her. We're going to watch a couple videos of some of the exercises that I've chosen for her. So an overview of lacrosse. Lacrosse is a very physical sport. It's very draining and exerting for the athletes. It is a contact sport as well. Field lacrosse at a collegiate level is played for 60 minutes with 15-minute quarters. It does have shifts that kind of change, similar to outdoor soccer, where a referee has to call in a substitute, so players can be stuck out on the field for a longer period of time. It makes the anaerobic system kind of a priority with the sport, because you could be out on the field for a long time and you don't want to be cramping up from a buildup of lactic acid. It is a very high intense and fast paced sport. You're going to be in bouts of sprinting and moving around the field, chasing down opponents, things like that. So explosive body power, especially in the lower body, is very important for that acceleration when you're starting to sprint. Grip strength is also a really big factor in lacrosse. You do have a lacrosse stick, so it helps with your stick control. It also helps with your accuracy with shooting and passing, catching, things like that. And then, as I mentioned, speed, acceleration, it needs to be seamless. You need to be able to go and stop when needed. Some of the physiological assessments that are often used for lacrosse, Wingate tests, those are used to test the anaerobic capacity of the athlete, but it's also used for lower body power kind of as a test. So oftentimes, and with our case study client Tina, she had done one as well, but it's a very important test that a lot of coaches and scouts look for when finding players for the lacrosse teams. Vertical jump, it tests, again, an athlete's lower body strength and power. Collegiate level lacrosse players have actually a very similar vertical jump to collegiate level basketball players. Everyone knows basketball players jump really high, so it's actually a very important part of the game of lacrosse. Speed testing, it's usually done in a 100 or 200 yard dash, so being able to sprint, not necessarily a far distance, but get across the field in a very short period of time is very important for the sport of lacrosse. And then speed and agility. So for speed and agility, it's often tested with drills like the T test or the left test. It kind of helps judge acceleration and deceleration and the ability to change direction very quickly, which is, again, all part of the sport of lacrosse. So for injury analysis, lacrosse is a contact sport. It is a very competitive sport. There's a lot of risk for injury. The majority of the injuries that happen to a lacrosse athlete are usually to the lower body. It's usually in the ankles, knees, hips. It's ligaments, fractions, sprains, things like that. The reason why is because there's a lot of linear movement, bouncing from side to side, acceleration, things like that. It tends to create a little bit more strain on the lower body fascia. So ACL tears, compression fractures, things like that are very common. It's very common as well to be injured during practice as well as during the game. However, you're 4 times more likely to get hurt during a game than during practice. Approximately 50% of the injuries that do occur during a game happen to the lower body. 20% of the injuries happen to the head or neck. Like I said, it is a contact sport, so concussions and things like that, whiplash, those do happen as well throughout the game. And then the last 30% is kind of split up between upper bodies, so your wrists, your arms, your elbows, and trunk. So if you bruise or crack a rib, things like that. there's actually a couple studies done that show that in not just lacrosse, but in most collegiate level sports, women are more likely to experience lower body like ACL tears or stress fractures than men were. So it's something that I took into consideration when building my program for Tina. So for our individual analysis, these are the results of her initial testing prior to us commencing our training together. So this is Tina's scores versus the average team score. So Tina is a fair amount older than the average player on the team. She's a little bit taller, a little bit heavier, has a little bit higher body fat percentage. Where we really get into areas that she needs to improve on, her VO2 max score, her Wingate test, her peak power, and her 1 mile run, all fall kind of short. They're all speed, aerobic capacities, and lower body power. Like I've mentioned a few times already, that's a very important part of the game of lacrosse, so those are all areas that we're going to need to definitely improve for her to make the team. Hand grip, so as I mentioned before, that helps with your stick control. She's a little bit lower than the team score right now, so it's something we're definitely going to be working on. She's not quite as flexible as the team, easy. We just have to make sure she's warming up and stretching before each one of her training sections. Her chest press, and push-ups from the knee, those are a little bit low as well, a little bit lower upper body strength. Where she is really strong, however, she has a little bit higher 1 rep max for her back squat, and she has a better back squat endurance than the average team member. And then her vertical jump, again, is not as high from the lack of lower body power that she currently has. So, as I mentioned, her strengths are her 1 rep max back squat and her back squat endurance. It's a really good start. It means she's got really strong legs. What we need to do is we need to turn that strength into an explosive power, start implementing some more plyometrics into her training to give her those bursts of energy. Her weaknesses, so her body composition, she was a little bit higher body fat percentage. She is taller and heavier, which is fine, so a priority would be building a leaner body mass. A leaner body mass does lead to a better aerobic capacity. Her grip strength, which I kind of touched on, gives you better stick control. Hers is a little bit less than the average team member right now. Her vertical jump, her speed and peak power, those kind of all tie into her lower body power, being able to burst into sprint, things like that are things we'll need to work on, and her speed and VO2 max, so her anaerobic and aerobic capacities. So what I've chosen for her training priorities is her peak power, her 1 mile run, and her vertical jump. That's essentially what's going to make her fast, make her agile, and give her the ability to possibly be on that field for a 60-minute shift if she doesn't get shifted off or something in the game. Now going into the training program, I've broken up this training program into 4 different cycles. So she has 3 mesocycles, which are a little bit longer of a period, and then the final cycle is just a microcycle. It's a 2-week period. It's tapered so that, based on the studies, leading up to a single competition, which would be her testing, it's better to kind of ease up on the training in order for them to have their peak performance when they're doing their testing. So the training times that I was given, she's able to start training in February, and then the testing is June 15th. So we have a little bit under 5 months to get her ready for this testing. So again, for our first mesocycle, we're going to be focused on strength and stabilization. Now, Tina has suffered an ACL injury in the past. She suffered it when she was 21 years old. Again, she's 26 now. So we need to build up that strength in the stabilization muscles in her lower body, especially to prevent any further injury. But it's also going to build a good foundation for, again, the powerful explosives that we want her legs to turn into, in order to have a good competitive edge over the other people trying out for the team. So in this training program, we mostly have a combination of strength and stabilization exercises. So we have back squats and front squats and bench presses, but we also have glute ham raises with a stabilization hold, box jumps with stabilization holds, again, to build up those stabilization muscles in her lower body. I do have a video of the box jump with stabilization hold just to show how it would properly be done in her training. Oh, where did my mouse go? There it is. So for my sport-specific program case study, I was given the client Tina, who was training to prepare herself to try out for Duke's women's lacrosse team. She had suffered, when she was 21 years old, a ACL tear in which she went through reconstructive surgery. And now she's 26 years old and she just has to prepare for the testing and tryouts for the Duke women's lacrosse team. Now I don't have Tina with me, obviously she's a case study client. So I'm going to use Evan to demonstrate some proper procedures. I'm going to go through one exercise from each of her mesocycles of the program that I built for her. The first mesocycle was for strength and stabilization. Because of her knee injury, I'm going to do box jump squats. We're going to be outside because it's a nice day. We're going to be jumping up and holding a squat position to help build the stabilization muscles in her knees. So go back to your walk and then we'll show. So we're going to be doing jumping up and landing in a squat position and holding it for 5 seconds. And then we'll jump up, down, and then hold for 5 seconds. 15 reps, 3 sets, 5-second hold for stabilization, and 2 minutes rest in between each set. So, make sure your knees are behind your toes, chest up. Hold for 5 seconds. 4, 3, 1, and down. Again. Let's back down a little lower. Perfect. 1, and down. 1 more. Perfect. Let's go a little lower. Squeeze. Perfect. So we'll do 15 reps of that for 1 set. So that was for her strength and stabilization. That was one of the activities that I chose for her. Moving into the second mesocycle of her training, we're going to now focus more on strength and power. So now that we've built up that stabilization and base strength in her body, we want to move on and start building that power, that explosive power. So in this portion, we're going to build in more plyometric activities, more power plyometrics based on the OPT model. So we have in here jump squats. We have the T drill, which is a speed, agility, and quickness drill. We still have our back squats in there, but we're going to be increasing her weight on them. And then we have like power box jumps, power step ups, some more powerful exercises to help build that lower body power. So again, I'm going to show you a video of one of the exercises that I chose. And alright, so for Tina's second mesocycle, it's focused on strength and power. One of the exercises that I chose for her was a squat jump. It's basically a more powered version, more plyometric version of the box jumps that we were doing for stabilization. So I'm just going to have Evan demonstrate a few of them. He's just going to do power up and push up as quickly and as powerfully as he can to help build lower body power. Whenever you're ready, you can do a couple. Push up. Push up. Awesome, just like that. So in Tina's program, she'll be doing 20 reps for 5 sets with a 90-second rest between each set. Perfect. So then moving into her third mesocycle of her training program. We're going to be focusing on strength and power again, but now we're going to make it a little bit more sport specific. So we're going to start implementing things that may simulate more of a game-like situation. We're going to have her holding her stick for some of the exercises for speed, agility, and quickness, just so she can get used to having her stick in her hand, be more comfortable with it, so when she goes in, it doesn't throw her off of her game at the tryouts, because realistically they're going to want to have her holding her stick or something to know what she's going to be playing like in a game life situation. So in this portion of her training, we've added now, for example, burpees with speed passes. We have swing exercises with the cable machine to kind of work on her passing muscles, work on that grip strength for both side pass and overhead pass. We have ladder drills, Russian boxers, kettlebell swings, so powerful, explosive movements, but also incorporating that lacrosse into it. So I will show you again a video of an example of one of the exercises I've given to her. So for the third mesocycle of Tina's training program, it's tailored to be more sport specific strength and power exercise, unlike the second where it's just strictly strength and power. Now we're going to start incorporating more lacrosse oriented skills just to prepare her for the training and testing. For this one, I'm just going to demonstrate the exercise. I'm going to be doing a burpee. This is my fake little lacrosse stick as an example. And she's going to be doing burpees with speed throws in between. She's going to be doing 10 burpees, 3 sets with a 2-minute rest in between. So just to show you what that would kind of look like, she'll have the lacrosse stick on the ground. She'll do a burpee, pick up the stick, speed throw, burpee, pick up the stick, speed pass, and another burpee. Repeating that 10 times, again for 3 sets and with a 2-minute rest in between. So for her last cycle of training, which is only a 2-week training cycle, so it's only a microcycle where we're tapering off a little bit just to kind of help her, based on the studies, be at her top performance for her testing. So we tapered it off, we lightened up her workload a little bit. She's still doing all of her anaerobic and cardiovascular training, but she's taking a little bit of a step back on the times, but still going as hard as she can for just a shorter period of time, just to kind of maintain it. And then we still have our some sport-specific speed, agility, quickness drills, and a couple power drills, just to kind of, like I said, just maintain what we've built, but not get her too exhausted prior to the testing, because we don't want to use up all of her energy in the training and then she's too tired when it comes to the testing. So this kind of gives her body a little bit of a break, but maintains the strength and power that we've built up. So again, I'm going to show you one more drill that I had picked out for Tina, and here we go. Alright, so for Tina's final cycle of her training, the 4th cycle, which is her peak power and endurance cycle, it is a tapering cycle, so it's only a 2-week portion of training, also known as a microcycle, just to kind of ease up on the training so she's at full capacity for her testing. We're going to be doing a drill called the left test. So it's a speed and agility test. Evan is going to be holding our fake lacrosse stick during out the test to kind of recreate a more game-like situation. It is a time test. She'll be doing 3 sets of it with a 2-minute rest in between each one, and we'll kind of analyze her times afterwards. So I've already explained how the left test mentioned in the video, after that training cycle, hopefully she'll be successful in her tryout for the Dukes women's lacrosse team. Overall, throughout the PowerPoint, we went over how we're going to use sport-specific training based on Tina's weaknesses to help build up those so they become strengths for her so she can use them to make that women's lacrosse team. We also need to make sure that we're training to help strengthen up around her injury to prevent any further injury, not just because she has a prior injury, but because lacrosse is a high risk for injury in general. And then we want to use proper periodization throughout her training to make sure that she's properly prepared, she's not too exhausted, her body is prepared after all of the 5 months of training that we've gone through to be at peak performance for the testing. And we also want to make sure we're incorporating game-like training just so that when she is doing her testing for the women's lacrosse team, she's familiarized with how a real-life game situation would be, and she's going to perform just as well in a game as she would during training or practice. So that's my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it.